Welcome back to Time Out here in the National Basketball Arena in Ta. I'm joined this week by Jason Clean from Black Amber Temple Oak, Jasmine Boone from Courtyard Liffey Celtics, and Pat O'Neill from Ulster University Elks. First of all, Pat, congratulations. You've been appointed the 5th Basketball Ireland Development Officer in the last week.
Yes, thank you very much. Great news. Really thrilled to be working with Basketball Ireland and Ulster University and helping to promote the game and grow it in the north.
Yeah, and Jay, it must be great to be expanding the development team here as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, another development officer is great for the game, and someone of Pat's standard it will really help us and help push basketball along, especially in the north.
Great. Well, no doubt we'll be roping Pat in to work at Cups and Europeans in the future. Of course, he did help us out during the summer, so thanks for that. But looking back at the weekend that was, and Jason's probably cursing me that I have him on the show this week given their results at the weekend, but we're going to swing down to Tralee first, Jason, and Tralee again making headlines, but really a cracking game down there. Like the atmosphere they created before was featured on sportsshow.ie, balls.ie, and they're really making a show of it down there. And then of course to have nearly a buzzer beating win with Darrell Sullivan getting that last 3-pointer, you can't ask for more.
Well, you can't ask for more, but I'm sure Tralee would have preferred to win by 20 you know, and not have that last second shot. But like you said, I mean, they've been in the league a little over a year now or whatever, and they've done a great job. You know, the fans in the town have really got behind the club, which is allowing them to do this kind of things. And like you said, national news. The intro was like an NBA intro. It's really good to see.
Yeah, and a big result for them as well.
Big result. I mean, anytime you hit a big shot like that to win the game, it really gives the team a boost. I think Mike Cullen will come out of it with a lot of positives too. You know, there's not a lot of teams in the last year have went down to Tralee and came that close, let alone beat them down there. So I think going forward for Mike Cullen, it'll be a positive as well.
And we're going to stick with Jason for another couple of minutes. Jason, Black Amber Temple Oak, their game, your game even at the weekend, didn't really go the way you planned. Now, UC Marion have always been a bit of a tough one for you anyway, like last year with the Super Series. You guys won the first game, they won the second game in an absolute cracker here in the arena. But did you run out of steam in the fourth quarter, or what do you think happened?
Yeah, I mean, look, full credit to UCD. Obviously, they've a great team and they've had some great additions this year, along with a solid core that they've had for several years. I think for us, looking inward, we ran out of steam. You know, we had a really good first half. The game was really good, and then when it came crunch time in the third and fourth quarter, I think they just had that little bit more legs underneath them to finish out the game.
And how are you going to move on from that, really? Like, not to drill it in or anything, but it's 3 losses out of 4 games. But to drill it in. You know, it is 3 losses out of 4 games, and you're playing UCC Demons this weekend. Is it hard to kind of recover, I suppose, even mentally?
I mean, look, the team the last couple of years are not used to losing, you know, so it is strange dropping 3 games in a row. We do feel like out of the last 3 weeks that we played the best this past weekend. Didn't quite get it over the line in the end, but the previous 2 weeks we just didn't play good basketball, you know, so we're getting better. A little late into the season to be getting better at this point, but playing UCC Demons this weekend, it's going to be fun. I mean, every game we've played them in the last couple of years has come down to the wire, and hopefully it'll be the same again. We feel like we match up well with them and they match up well with us, so it's going to be a good game.
Right, well, we'll leave him off the hook for a couple more minutes. But Pat, just to bring you in on the Men's Super League, there was another big clash at the weekend. Griffith College Swords Thunder and Belfast Star. Swords obviously coming in off the back of an agonising loss to Demons. We had Isaac on the show last week, and you know, Belfast Star were going into the game, hadn't been beaten, but then some people would say they hadn't really been challenged either. But it ran very close, and like Swords only won by 5 or 6 in the end. Like Belfast Star have really come on since last year.
Yeah, they have. You know, the addition of the Quinn twins coming back from the States is
really... It's always a hard one to say, isn't
it? As soon as you get off it, and I wouldn't mind if they're playing on the college team with me. They've really made a massive difference to the squad. They've given that little bit of depth that they were kind of lacking maybe a little bit, and they're both scoring threats, and it just allows, you know, Keelan on the inside to spread out a little bit more, which is what he kind of naturally gravitates to. And I think it's, you know, if you look at what they're scoring this year so far, I definitely think, you know, they're in with a shout of being towards the top end of the division, and it's the first time in a few years we've been able to say that about them.
Yeah, definitely. Belfast becoming ones to watch, really, Jason.
Yeah, like Pat said, they've struggled a bit over the past couple of years and maybe finished a couple of places lower than going into the season they would have felt. And I think the first couple of games now they'll really be riding on confidence. They're enjoying playing basketball, they're winning games. So it'd be good now to see them for the rest of the season, how they progress.
Yeah, indeed. And other games at the weekend, as we mentioned last week, with the 4 divisions now back. We won't get to cover everyone's individual game, but we will get to at some point. UCC Demons overcame Mary. Cubs and Colester went head to head last night, with Colester coming out the right side of that result in Greendale, and Aina, of course, coming out with another home win against DCU Saints. But moving over to the Women's Super League now, Jasmine, I'm going to bring you in on this. I suppose one of the big games of the weekend, obviously yourselves were playing, but to start down in Cork, Ambassador UCC Glanmire hosted Pyreble Colester and came out with a win, but it was a tough win. There was a draw game at half time. What do you think of it?
Yeah, especially since Colester aren't 100% in their players, for them to hold Glenmire only 38 points in the first half. They made it tough for Glenmire, and for them to depend on younger players to bring them back and bringing momentum says a lot about Colester. But then again, Glenmire is still the club to beat, and is still the club for other clubs to chase and catch up with. So it was a very enjoyable game to watch.
Yeah, well, speaking of younger players, I was dreaming up headlines from the gallery in the Mardyke. I was coming up with Geez Louise, and I don't know what else. I'd probably embarrass myself to tell you what I came up with. But Louise Scannell really, and Annalise, of course, coming in off the bench. But Louise, from a shooting point of view, Glanmire were struggling in the first half. Mark admitted himself in the interview afterwards. Louise came in off the bench and she was knocking down threes to beat the band. Like, it's fantastic that he's got that depth now coming in off the bench.
Yeah, I completely agree. When people think of Glenmire, they think of Anya McKenna, Casey Grace, Grania Dwyer, Claire Rockhall. But it's great to see that there's younger players coming through the club and keeping that level of basketball going, not only for Basketball Ireland standard, but for a club standard as well. So it's very great to see. Yeah,
and of course the added factor of that game was Chantal Alford, who would have played with Glanmire last year and obviously won a lot of silverware with them, but she has moved over to Pyreble Colester and made a huge difference for them at the weekend. But moving across to your own game, it was your opening game of the season as well, and you were home in Leixlip and you had NUIG Mystics. How did that work out for you? How are you feeling afterwards?
I think it was, getting our nerves out. I don't think we played to the best of our ability, but a win's a win, and especially as a home opener, it's great to win in front of your crowd. I think Galway's still a tough team. They didn't go down without a fight, and I was very impressed by their play. So.
Yeah, and of course you leading the stats on rebounds as well. Even though you're out at the top of the key shooting, she's also in under the ring rebounding. But Liffey Celtics, you've had a tough pre-season, and then how is the new faces coming in? Like, I was talking to Mark, you've got a good few of the underage after coming up, and obviously your new American Devin Brookshire in as well. How are the team clicking together?
I think we're continuing our momentum from last season. I think Devin's a great addition. We play more like a team, and it's great to have younger players and players that didn't play up to that level last year as many minutes as they did. Maybe the first minute, like Laura Fortune really came on that Irish team, definitely did her wonders because she played really, really well, and it's great to see other players do well. Everyone focus on the Americans or the likes of Anya O'Connor, but it's great to have other players step up and wanting to take that challenge.
Yeah, indeed. And 2 other games in the Women's Super League at the weekend. DCU Mercy had the weekend off, but Brunel, Singleton Super Value Brunel, travelled up to Portlaoise and got a big win in Portlaoise with Brianna Bay top scoring for them. And then the other game was IT Carlow, who lost out to Maxall WIT Wildcats, and we'll be looking at both of those teams in the preview for the coming weekend. But switching over to the men's Division 1, and Pat, I'm going to bring you in on this because your men's team were actually in a lot of game action this weekend, or last weekend even. The first, of course, was the big clash against Ballincollig. Both teams unbeaten up until that day. And, Elks, I was at the game. Elks were trailing by a good bit, really, at the start of the second half, and they brought it back to 6. At one stage in the fourth quarter, Ballincollig maybe losing a little bit of legs in the fourth. But it was a great game. Despite the results not going Elks' way, it was a good game from a...
Yeah, it was a great test. I was talking to Coach McKee and Coach Hayes about it. A bad start just let Ballincollig get in rhythm and really struggled to come back a bit from that. Second half then, as you said, they ate back into that lead and brought it back, but I think travelling down, it's a long distance, and I think the legs Ballincollig are a very well drilled team. Kieran's done a great job with them. With the two O'Sullivans, they're really solid. The new American came in and played this week as well. So they have a lot of firepower. The guys that came off the bench all contributed, all made shots. So it's tough to get a run against a team when they're at home. It's a fantastic venue, great atmosphere in there. The guys were telling me as well.
Yeah, it was super.
And Ballincollig going to be one of the contenders this year.
Yeah,
sure.
Most definitely. And going from what I've seen of them anyway, one of the big games I'll be looking forward to is Ballincollig playing Neptune. Which is looking like a Friday night later in November. We'll give you more on that, but it looks like we're heading for Neptune Stadium for that one. But staying with Elks, on the way home from Cork the next day, they stopped in LIT for another big game really, and you got Matt St. Moore under 40 points as well, so that was good stuff. He only scored 36 only. But a big win for Elks to come off within 24 hours to play a second game and go on and win was a big result as well. Yeah,
a lot of games in the schedule this year. There's 14 games coming up towards Christmas, so the Elks have 3 double headers, so they do, and it was always going to be a tough one. It's the only one where we're away for both games. Thankfully, we're home and away for the others. Limerick are a young, exciting team. My son plays with them, and Matt has been phenomenal as a Victory Scholar. He's come in, he's lit it up from a scoring point of view. The guys watched a lot of tape on Matt and what Limerick were doing, and that big zone that Tony likes to put out there, and it was back and forth. Limerick had it right down to the wire, and then I think it was probably just a little bit of experience, and that kind of showed down the stretch, and it allowed our guys to pull it out. But Limerick's going to be a tough venue during the season. Yeah,
they're quite a young team though as well, so once they get a few more games under their belt, there's no doubt that they will indeed be even tougher. But Jason, I'm coming over to you now. I seem to name drop him nearly every week at this stage, but Niall McDermott is surely dancing up in Donegal. An absolutely massive win for them at the weekend at home against Father Matthews. That's a big result for Niall coming off the back of a very tough start to the season.
Yeah, definitely. Niall is definitely a colourful character, so we all heard about that win early in the week, so really happy for them. I mean, they're putting together a good programme up there, and it's good to see National League teams in the Northwest now and competing as well, which is great.
Yeah, and speaking of National League in the Northwest, there is of course a women's team up there now as well. Fab Plus Northwest is the name they're now going by, so we'll be talking about them soon, Pat, when we swing over to the Women's Division 1. But another big win, and maybe one that might have surprised a few people, was Portlaoise Panthers overcoming Scots Lakers St. Paul's Killarney on Saturday evening in the Men's Division 1. That's a huge win for Portlaoise.
Yeah, any team that's coming into the league to try and defend your home venue, I think it was a double header with the women's game as well, which meant there was a great atmosphere in at it. For St. Paul's, it's always going to be tough. Again, they're a new team coming into the league. There is a lot of experience in there with Andrew Fitz having come from Killorglin from last year, and they're a big team. They're solid. Their American is very strong. But I think when you're on the road, Division 1, it's tough this year. So there's going to be no easy games, and I think St. Paul's found that out. And a great win for Portlaoise.
Yeah, definitely. And we still have another unbeaten team in the Men's Division 1, Keene Super Valley Killorglin. We're going to be focusing on them again in the preview of the weekend, because they have a massive game coming up this Saturday evening in a big Kerry derby. And on top of that, they overcame EJ Sligo All-Stars, and Paris, Texas Kilkenny also recorded their first win of the season when they overcame Titans on the road at the Jazz in Galway last Sunday afternoon. But moving into the Women's Division 1, and Pat, you are now coaching the Ulster University Elks women's team, so we're going to start with you guys. You had a tough opening game really on paper when you looked at it. Meteors had just been relegated from the Women's Super League, and it was a tough fixture for you to have as the first game, but you really rose to the challenge.
Yeah, I have to say, the girls were fantastic. We have a very young team. We've got 3 that are under 18, and the rest are all in college. And then we have our 2 Victory Scholars that are in with us. We had a great first half. Enya Maguire lit it up. She was on fire. She had 15 points in the first quarter for us. Fair play to Meteors. They weathered the storm, brought it right back in the second quarter. They went up and it was tit for tat in the middle of the third quarter. And then, the thing that I was most impressed with, which gives me, a lot of belief about where we're going to be this season, is the resilience we showed in order to come back from that after having lost a big lead, and then worked forward in the fourth quarter and started to extend it again. So the girls did brilliant. They did really well. Meteors are a very tough team. I do think maybe they came up to us thinking it might have been a bit of an easier game than they were expecting, and I think that complacency might have played a little bit in it, because we had played in the pre-season tournament. They'd beat us very comfortably 2 weeks prior to that.
So you were hiding a few tricks up your sleeve?
Not really. I think them missing Emer Martin was big as well for them, but they're a big, strong team. I think Division 1 ladies is going to be very competitive this year, and all the teams are big. So I think it's going to be a great season, great league.
Yeah, and Jasmine, in another game at the weekend, Marble City Hawks played against Griffith College Stores Thunder, and it was a cracking game. Hawks only won out in the end by a point. It was Griffith College Stores Thunder's first game of the National League, their new team. But a lot of familiar faces in around that Swords team, a lot of DCU, a lot of from Oblets. Like, they're looking like they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. Obviously running Hawks so close as well.
I feel like people initially think that Thunder were gonna, win. Everyone, at least beforehand, were saying that they're a strong team. They have the Black sisters, a lot of experience. But one of my best friends, she plays for Kilkenny Hawks, so it was great to see them have that win, especially last year in the cup. They got
it's heartbreaking.
So it's good to see them win, and it's unfortunate for Thunder, but it's all about seeing a good game as well. So I'm happy it was a tight one.
Yeah, and speaking of good games and top scoring even, Kelsey Carey of Griffith College Stores Thunder top scored in the game with 30 points, and Kelly O'Halloran from Hawks had 22 as well. So very interesting to watch the way the guards are working there, especially Kelly O'Halloran and Katie Fox, such a dream team for Marble City Hawks last year, and they're back again. Undoubtedly ones you'll have to be looking out for coming down the line.
100%. We have them in a few weeks' time in the start of November. Kelly's only in the country 10 days, so she's only clicking into it. I think Elaine Kennington, who came from Carlow, was massive down the stretch. She hit a basket to bring them within one, and then hit 2 free throws in the dying seconds in order to get the win. And that's experience that's there for you as well. I do think Thunder are only going to get better. They're a young team, a young Irish setup. Like you said, the Black sisters are very, very talented, and the 2 Americans are very good, and they have Spanish guard as well, who I hear is quite good. So we'll see them in 2 weeks' time. So
very good.
A little bit more after that.
Looking forward to it. And the last game of the Women's Division 1 was Fab Plus Northwest, who welcomed a very experienced UL Huskies up to Donegal, and unfortunately came out the wrong side of that result, but I'm sure they'll be looking to rectify that this coming weekend. But just before we go on to the preview of the weekend, and I'm just going to turn my cards a little bit away from Pat O'Neill, we're going to just have a short, small little game with our guests, just to see, do they know who said what at the weekend? So, the only clue I'm going to give you is that all of these quotes come from coaches. I might give you the division if you're very, very stuck. Maybe.
Are we working as a team?
No conferring. Conferring. Okay, so
we're making up the rules.
You can just I'm making up the rules as I go along. So would you like to put up your hand, or would you want to say your name, or are you just going to shout at me? You're probably just going to shout at me, aren't you? So the first quote for a biscuit: I hate the place, simple as, it's the hardest place to win. Oh, Pat is in straight away. Pat.
Well, that would have to be my good friend Paul Kelleher.
And where do you think he was talking about?
Upper Glanmire.
Upper Glanmire, indeed he was. That was Paul Kelleher chatting to me after their 10-point win over Dublin Lions at the weekend. The next quote. That was very good, Pat. You need to up your game over there now. When we stop the other teams scoring in the hundreds, we actually have a really good chance of winning. It's a men's Division 1 coach that you all know extremely well.
I'm going to go with Nabil.
Nabil, okay. Any other guesses?
Hundreds.
Nabil, you're both wrong. It's actually our beloved Niall McDermott, who is anxious to stop teams scoring in the hundreds against him. The next quote, we're going over to the Men's Super League now. So put your thinking caps on. And looking ahead to this weekend, it was said, for us, we're not at a stage yet where we can worry about the win and the lose columns. The Men's Super League team who are coming to Dublin this weekend. I think I've practically given it away.
John Finn.
No.
Colin O'Reilly.
Yes, well done, Jasmine. That is one each for Jasmine and Pat, even though Demons are playing Jason's team on Saturday. The next one, I'm actually going to tell you it's the Women's Super League, and we might give Jason a chance to come in on this one. The quote is a little bit taken out of context, but you don't really have to be a good scorer on this team.
Little help.
Women's Super League.
Is it Mark?
Mark
Scannell.
It is indeed Mark Scannell. Said after he was talking about their performance on Sunday and how their American had performed well and had scored a lot, but that he didn't feel she needed to be a good scorer on the team because of the strength around her. This one is the Men's Super League. We're not used to losing week after week. We just have to try and keep our heads up.
I think we know that one.
Who would that be?
Mark Keenan.
Mark Keenan of Black Amber Templeogue, it is indeed said to Sheena after their loss to UCD Marion. And the final quote of the game for a bonus point. Are you on 2 now? I think you're on 2, yeah.
I think I'm winning.
Oh, you're winning. So to tie the game, Pat and Jasmine, that game was another final for us. We have 22 finals this year.
Oh, UCD.
You said
Yeah.
Giannis.
Yes, well done. So we have joint winners there, Jasmine and Jason. But after that light-hearted interlude, we're going to look ahead to the weekend and the Men's Super League. Yeah? Okay. So Black Amber Templeogue and Demons, we've spoke a little bit about it already, Jason, but you know this is a must-win really for you guys now.
It is. Look, like you said, we're just at this point. I think we have to take it game by game. Mm-hmm. You know, after a couple of losses, we can't take the pressure of the last 3 weeks going forward. Like I said earlier, every game we've played against Demons in the past 2 or 3 years have been exciting games. Have been really good games. It's an extra, with Colin and Lamont back now, makes it even higher stakes, but we just have to look forward to playing one of the big teams in the league and hopefully come out the right end of it this time.
And how are you feeling personally, kind of, I suppose, looking to matching up really against Le Mans inside as well?
Yeah, I've played against Le Mans so many times now. I enjoy playing against him. I think he's a really good basketball player. He's a fierce competitor. He's a real nice guy off the court, but I think as soon as the two of us cross them lines onto the court, we kill each other, but it's all good. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we heard you've become a 3-point shooter recently anyway, so you mightn't be in there at all.
Probably Mark here, that, whatever you do.
Well, there is a rule though, isn't there? If you score
the first
one,
you get another one.
You get another one, okay. That's not too bad though, really. So another game really, Moycullen and Éanna, which I think is going to be a really big game. Éanna are coming off the back of 2 big wins, one of them of course against Templeogue, and then the second last weekend against DCU Saints. I'm not rubbing it in, I promise. But Éanna looking really in really good shape at the moment. Moycullen obviously got a big win against Killester a couple of weeks ago. Nearly had it against Tralee at the weekend. They just lost, as we said already, by that 3-pointer at the end. It's going to be an interesting matchup, Jason. I know I'm looking at you again, but you know you've played against Éanna already. So, what do you think of that game, really?
Like you said, it's going to be a really interesting game, especially if Moycullen keep that confidence from last weekend. And have added a lot of pieces this year, and I think they're definitely going to be top half of the table versus where they were last year. You know, so they're enjoying themselves right now. We played against Moycullen in the pre-season, and we had Éanna last week. It's going to be an interesting matchup. It'll be interesting again to see the result at the end of that.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, Mike Cullen's American has been performing quite well. Brandon McGuire as well of recent. So it'll be interesting, of late even, so it'll be interesting to see how Aina cope with that. Another big game, Pat, coming back to you, just because you know a good few of the guys in around there. Belfast Star are welcoming Colester up to Belfast this weekend. Colester, as we mentioned, lost out to Mike Cullen. Obviously they're American. Rolls Royce, as Puff I think was calling him, or was it Al Casey actually was calling him. He picked up a pretty serious injury a couple of weeks ago, so he's out for a couple of weeks. So they lost out to Mike Cullen. They obviously had a big win against Cubs last night, 30-point win I think it was in the end. But now they're facing into a Belfast Star who really, you could say, have their tails up despite the Swords result at the weekend. You know, they're really looking nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ryan Oliver, who played with us last year, is a great addition for them. I think he fits nicely into the system and what they're looking to do. Star have always been tough to play at home. Even when the last couple of seasons they might have struggled at times, they've managed to either grind it out or bring teams down to the level where they were comfortable scoring. And that last year would have been kind of mid-70s. Now they're definitely a mid-80s, 90-point team, and that's what they're looking at. And I think if they can get to that around that mark, they'll be very, very tough to stop up in Methody.
Yeah, and Jasmine, is there any team, I suppose, in the men's Super League that you've been watching or that has kind of caught your eye, I suppose, with results? Like the start of the league this year has a few unpredicted results, really. Like, has there been anything that you've spotted?
Yeah, I was really impressed by Aina's performance, unfortunately, against Tempolo. Last year...
We're ganging up on the night.
Last year they finished, I'm pretty sure, on the bottom half of the table,
yeah.
And they've really came on strong. They have some really nice players, and I've noticed that they have a good coach, so I'm really impressed by their performance in the season so far.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Pat will be glad to hear that, as of course will Garney. If anyone wants to see some nice photographs, you can go onto Garney's Facebook page where there's some very interesting memes indeed. But yeah, Aina definitely wants to watch as their star. And I suppose looking at the other games of the weekend, UCD Marion, the only team now unbeaten in the Men's Super League, are welcoming Mary to Closh to Isagon this weekend. Actually, that venue has been changed for any of you who are looking to go to that game. They're now having a double header with the Women's Division 1 game, with the Meteors Fab Plus Northwest game. So that's going to be a double header of action in Closh to Isagon on Saturday. Cubs are welcoming Griffith College Swords Thunder, and Tralee and DCU Saints are going head to head in what will probably be another close game as well. But moving on to the Women's Super League, and Jasmine, I'm going to come to you first. A big game from many respects really this weekend. Obviously there's a lot of big games, but DCU Mercy's first game of the season, they started a week later than everybody else. I know Mark Ingles really looking forward to getting the season underway. Quite a young side, a lot of the underage internationals really. It's like a who's who of the underage international scene. And they're playing Pireville Colester, who are of course coming off the back of that loss to Glanmire down in Cork last weekend. What do you think of that game? It's on in DCU on Sunday.
Colester and DCU, I would definitely say would be in the top fours of this league, so it definitely would be a good game to catch. Colester have one game under their belt, and even though it's a loss, they're in the flows of season and at game speed, so DCU are going to have to bring it up that one notch at game speed since it's their first game. But I think it will be a close game, and it would be nice since DCU have a lot of talent. They have Ash Sullivan, and they have younger players like Rachel Houstons and Brenna Power Cassidy. So, and I have a former college teammate on that team as well. So it'd be an exciting game to watch. But yeah,
I saw her in pre-season. She's pretty good.
Yeah, she has a nice touch.
Yeah, definitely. It'll certainly be an interesting one. Of course, Colester will be hoping to be back to full strength for that game. Of course, that is tipping off at 3:30 on Sunday in the DCU Sports Complex. But looking at the only game of the weekend that's on the Saturday in the Women's Super League, there's a lot of games on Sunday this weekend. And the Saturday game, Jasmine, I'm going to come back to you actually on this. Portlaoise Panthers are welcoming even Maxwell WIT Wildcats to St Mary's Hall in Portlaoise. And Portlaoise actually have a double header this weekend. They are playing both Saturday and Sunday. They're playing Wildcats on Saturday and yourselves on Sunday. And that's a tough ask, particularly not only with the loss of Claire Amelia is a huge loss for them. But they're coming in off last weekend's loss against Brunel, and then to do a turnaround on Super League within 24 hours. It's going to be a tough weekend for Portlaoise.
Yeah, I would definitely say the Wildcats game won't be an easy match for them, as well as our match. So, it'd be interesting to see how the cards play out for Portlaoise, especially in the loss of Claire Amelia. But if there's one thing I know about Portlaoise, they always put up a good fight and give it 110%. So, may the better man win, but yeah.
Are you worried about them going into it for yourselves on Sunday? Like they have two Stephanies there who they're shooting the lights out really.
Yeah.
It didn't go their way for them on Saturday against Brunel, but the two of them really stood up to the mark. Like, are you looking at maybe how you're going to guard them, or?
Yeah, I know one of their Americans is a very, very good shooter, and one of them likes to post up. I think we can handle them pretty well in man. May, the likes of another underage international like May Phelan is another great player that they have on their side. So I think Peter will come out and have a good game plan for both Wildcats and us. But I think we can handle them well and a man and maybe run the floor a bit. So we'll see how it goes.
Two big games there indeed, so keep an eye on Portlaoise Panthers Facebook page. They usually provide live updates from the game. The last two games even of the weekend, Francis O'Sullivan is welcoming NUIG Mystics down to the Parochial Hall in Cork as Brunel take on Mystics in what is set to be a very close game. While IT Carlow basketball, one that I'm actually quite interested in as well, on Sunday, I might come to you on this, Pat. IT Carlow basketball, so Martin Conroy's side, they're up in the Super League for the first time. They've got 1 win and 1 loss under their belts, winning out against Mystics in the opening game and then losing out to Wildcats narrowly enough last weekend. They're facing Ambassador UCC Glanmire. Like a daunting task. I'm sure Kojak is relishing the prospect of it, but it is a daunting task nonetheless, to first year in the Super League to be welcoming Glanmire.
Absolutely, and you're right, Kojak is relishing it. He's talked about it for a number of weeks now, about how the programme has moved and gotten to where it is now in playing in the Super League. He's a little bit ahead in his timeline, and while I think there might have been a serious enough injury to one of the Americans playing with Kojak in Carlow, I know he'll still relish Mark and the girls coming from Glanmire up to play that game. And it's great for basketball in the Midlands. It's fantastic to see Kilkenny and Carlow playing in Division 1 and Super League and bringing that. And Portlaoise, as well.
Midlands are flying.
Yeah.
But Jason, we were only talking about it. Jason, by the way, was involved in a hula hoops photo shoot with us today. You can see some lovely photographs of that on our Snapchat account.
It's been a busy day, Mary.
We had him in hair and makeup very early on, as you can see. But if you want to follow Jason's poses, they are on the Basketball Ireland Snapchat, so find us there. But Jason, you were joined by Grania Dwyer today for that photo shoot, and we were talking to Grania really about how big the women's game has got, the last couple of years. I was even saying from streaming it at the weekend, the Glanmire Colester game was the biggest views that we had live out of all the games I've streamed so far this year. So it's great to see that huge pickup on.
Oh, it's fantastic to see. And rightly so. The women's game in Ireland has gotten better and better. And then when you look at the results, it's easy to look in the context of Ireland and say the game is getting better. But then when you see, the Irish girls going abroad and playing the 3-on-3 and how well they're doing against countries that we always would have looked at as being, better standard than we are, and they're competing and winning. So it brings it back then when you look at the game in Ireland, how far it actually has gone. And I think that's kind of across the board with female sports in Ireland now. You've seen the crowd at the GAA match a couple of weeks ago.
The Ladies All Ireland,
yeah. It's huge. It's really good to see. It's very positive, forward thinking, I believe.
Yeah, very good. Well, moving on to the men's Division 1, all roads lead to Kerry, and the lads laugh at me for saying that. I tend to say that a lot, all roads lead somewhere, but they definitely lead to Kerry this weekend, and it is Killarney and Killorglin. Is he still teasing me? Yeah. Killarney and Killorglin. You're fired, Jason. Killarney and Killorglin, for the third time I'm going to say those two names, are going head to head, Pat, in what is set to be an absolute sellout in Killarney. They're already ringing me to ask me where they can possibly pack more people into the sports centre in Killarney. I was down there a couple of weeks ago. They have an absolutely fantastic atmosphere down there, but you can't really beat a local derby. And Andrew Fitzgerald is now playing for Killarney, played for Clorgan last year. There's so many different elements to it, really, isn't there?
There is, and you know, even just looking at the basketball side of things, there are two very big teams. Killorglan's, one of their Eastern Europeans, you know, was in and ready to play for last weekend. They're a really big side, and I think physically they'll match up quite well against St. Paul's, and then it'll kind of come down to the experience. So will it be Declan Wall that'll pull it out? Will it be Andrew Fitz who kind of brings them along? And I think it'll be a fantastic game. Basketball in Kerry is just brilliant. It's home for me. St. Paul's was the first club I ever played basketball with, so it's fantastic to see them back in national competition. And you know, it's just, the crowds are phenomenal. You're looking at what's happening in Tralee and Killarney and down in Killorgan, and it's just, you know, I think it'll be a great game. Looking forward to it. I hope it's being streamed.
We'll ask them. Okay. I might not be down in Kerry this weekend if anyone's talking about pressure. But yeah, Killarney Clorgan is definitely going to be a good one. They were talking to us during the week. We did a big preview of the game in today's Irish Daily Star. Just a little plug there. If any of you want to pop out and buy the newspaper, we have a nice preview looking ahead to the weekend. But indeed, Killarney also said to me to make sure to get down there early, because even against their game against Neptune a couple of weeks ago, they had to turn over 200 people away from the door nearly an hour before tip-off. So please get down there early from Clorgan and from Killarney if you want to go in and see some pretty special basketball. But moving to Cork now, Father Matthews have a double header this weekend. They are playing Titans and they're playing Ulster Elks. And Pat, I'm coming back to you again. You know, that's going to be a tough ask again of Father Matthews. We keep saying it with the men's Division 1, these double header weekends are tough. It's tough psychologically, really, as well, you know. Yeah. Tired body and tired mind, really, you know. Absolutely.
The only advantage this weekend for them is that the both games are at home, so there's no travelling involved. You know, they can get straight away into recovery after the Titans game to try and prepare then for our guys coming down. Titans have a great big guy in Keegan Ryan. I think he had 30 points last weekend against Kilkenny. He's really tough to stop. Like, he's one of the better big guys in the league. Very effective within 6-8 feet from the basket. Some lovely post touches. And then with Matthews, you've got their new American in, and plus Michael McGinn, who's just phenomenal. You know, still brings it up. Wasn't there last year, is back with them again this year, and you can see straight away they're much more competitive. They're much more able to compete with you know, the bigger teams, and I think it's an exciting weekend. It's another road trip down for us, down to Cork on Sunday, which is fantastic, and you know, it's always a great welcome with Matthews in Cork. They're a great club, and it's going to be a really tough game for us. So hopefully it'll be a cracker that goes to double overtime on Saturday night against Titans, and they're a little bit tired by the time our guys get down to them then on Sunday.
So no pressure on Titans at all to bring a game to double overtime?
Not at all. Paul Langan loves pressure.
I'm sure of that, but there are some other big games of the weekend, and again, we're just running a little bit tight on time, but of course, Paris, Texas, Kilkenny are going to be facing off against Ballincollig. Again, Ballincollig still unbeaten and will be hoping to keep that run up against Kilkenny. Elsewhere, we've got Dublin Lions chasing their first win as they welcome Portlaoise Panthers to Colossus Reach in Clondalkin. And the other big game of the weekend, of course, LIT Celtics welcoming Neptune to Limerick on Saturday as well. And of course, not to forget, IT Carlow Basketball and LYIT Donegal going head to head in the Barrow Centre on Sunday, which is part of a double header with the Women's Super League game against Ambassador UCC Glanmire. So a lot of games to look forward to in the Men's Division 1 this weekend. But finally, just moving on to the Women's Division 1, Pat, you're on the road, and you're on the road to Limerick. UL Huskies are waiting for you this weekend.
They are indeed. You know, we played them in the semi-final of the Pat Clark tournament a couple of weeks ago. We were lucky enough to come out with 1 point win on that. I watched their game against Donegal last weekend. You know, they're just very experienced. Rachel Sheehan is just a phenomenal basketball player. It's fantastic to see her back in the game again and playing. And you know, with Orla Woods and Kathy Campbell, they're big, they're strong. Move the ball well, and
so
I expect it to be and I expect it to be really tough down there, you know. So.
Yeah, and Jasmine Meashears, who you'd have known from Super League, obviously the last couple of years as well. They're hosting Fab Plus Northwest, so the new team from Donegal. That's, you know, they're chasing their first win, but Isagon is always a hard place to get a win in as well. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game for Northwest to come down.
Yeah, I agree, and Meteors are experienced with the likes of the Meany sisters, and they've all played Super League as well, so it'd be nice to get a win under their belt. But so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and Father Matthews are starting their season. They are like DC Mercy in the Women's Super League. They had to wait one extra week before they got their season underway, and they are playing Marble City Hawks this coming weekend. So Niamh Dwyer and co will be ready for a big game this weekend, and that is going to be played as a doubleheader with the men's team in Coláiste Christrí from 5:15. So 2 games on in the National League in Coláiste Christrí. So that is it for us this week. Thanks Jason, Jasmine and Pat indeed for joining us on the show this week, and thanks to you all.